Hey guys, I want to thank you so much for being first listeners to this on the podcast, or if you're watching this live. I want to invite you guys as a thank you to be a guest on the show. So all you need to do is send me an email. The email is guest@investingyourselfpod.com. In the subject, say podcast series guest, and in the body, just say, hey, who you are, what your podcast is, where you're about. Send me 3 episodes you think I'll enjoy listening to, and then I'll reach out to you and we'll schedule a time for you to be on the show. So remember, that's guest@investingyourselfpod.com. And I look forward to listening to your podcast and then learning about you. So without further ado, let's listen into today's show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Invest in Yourself, the podcast series. I am, of course, your host with the most feel better, the podcast mogul. And today I have the HSP coach, Barbara, on the podcast. Barbara, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hi, Phil. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's always such a pleasure talking with you. And I'm doing awesome. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. Barbara was a guest on my other podcast, Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur podcast, where she talked about her coaching journey and how she helps people discover their true self and become better business people. Barbara, so I'm very happy to have you here. Since this is a different audience, do you want to just quickly introduce yourself to them so that they can understand who you are and what you're about?
Yes, I would love to. I am an effortless transformation coach, and I help people who have always felt different than other people and thought they needed to be someone else in order to fit in, that are either currently feeling unhappy, stuck, or trapped in their life, and they want to feel and be better, to tap into the truest essence of who they are so that they become the conscious creators of the life that they truly want to live. So basically that means take off all your masks, step into your purpose, and take the driver's seat so that you decide where you want to end up.
I love it. I love it. And we had a great conversation. It nearly went over an hour last time we talked. We're going to try and keep it contained this time to podcasts. Both creative people who love helping other creatives make money and become the people they're supposed to be. It's always important. So, Barbara, your podcast is called 100% Yourself with Barbara. Where
Yes.
did you come up with the name and the idea for the podcast?
Well, came up with the idea when COVID first hit, because all of a sudden the government closed down my business. So I wasn't allowed to do the physical part of my business. And that meant that I had some sort of mandatory holiday and before trying to figure out how to do everything online. And that's also when I was a part, I think, of a conference or a symposium or something. And they talked about podcasting. And I thought, oh, that sounds very interesting. So then I decided to do a little bit of research, and I thought, oh, I love talking to people. I love sharing my story. And I thought, well, I think I would be amazing at it. So I just decided to try and see where it would lead. And then, yeah, obviously, you need to find a title for your podcast. And that's not the easiest thing to do. But online, there was this free podcast name generator, and you just had to input a lot of the keywords um, from your target audience and your niche and who you help and their pain points and what you help them with. And then they generate a whole bunch of suggestions for titles, and I started scrolling through them, and I actually came up with this one, but it's a combination of a couple of other ones that were suggested when my own inspiration suddenly sparked by seeing those examples, and I thought, that's it.
Oh, I love it. I love being your creativity. You're looking at already this amazing creativity tool that you had. I first of all, I didn't know there was a podcast helping naming tool. I need to find that because that's an amazing tool to have in your arsenal. But
Yes,
I love how you're looking at this tool and you're like, oh, these are great. And then you're like, I like that. I like that. Let's bring this. And then you're just your own brain, because we are creative creatures, just pops in and just creates this awesome title. Um,
exactly.
So in these episodes you have currently, you're at about 17, I see here. Um, do you release on a monthly basis or semi-regular basis?
Well, I have to be honest, I stopped for a while. I'm actually thinking of starting again. But what I did, I in the beginning, I released every week, and then I did that for quite some time, and then life took over. This has been a rocky year with lots of ups and downs, lots of
Mhm.
downs, and lots of grow opportunities. Let's call them that. And that messed with my consistency. So then later it became whenever I felt inspired.
Ah, no, that's good because you don't want this is an extra tool in our arsenal as creative people. Like this is my livelihood, so it's like I need to be super consistent with my podcasting because I have to release the episodes for my audience. But when you're using it as an extension of your already business, you can't put too much pressure on yourself to be pumping out episodes because it's gonna your other areas are gonna suffer, or you're gonna be putting out episodes that aren't worthy of your audience, and then
Yes.
that could also hurt. So I like how you just go, when I'm inspired, I will put out an episode, and that's your audience will understand that. Um, what is some of the fun moments you've had with your podcast, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, my podcast is diverse. So mostly people choose either an interview style like we are doing, or they choose an educational style.
Mhm.
And I've done both. So that's the thing I love about it. I discovered I'm a multi-potentialite, which means that I have many different interests, but also many different capabilities. And I love meeting new people and talking with them and having an awesome conversation like you and me are having right now. So that's one part I like, but I also like to teach and to share. So sometimes I have these epiphanies or brain farts, it doesn't matter how you call them. And then I feel, I need to share this with the world. So then I take out my phone and I install the Rode app on it for the Rode microphones.
Yeah.
And then I start talking, and then I cut out the things of which I think, oh, these are brilliant, and I put them in a show.
That's I love that just boom, that just how you just go, yes, this is how we're doing. You're doing it the most simplest, fastest way to get it done so that you have it up there and your audience can digest it and accept the authenticity of the rawness of your episodes versus someone who does a full polished episode. I love that. And
Yes.
how did you come up with the style? Like both educational and interview. Was that something you wanted to the interviews were something you wanted to do originally, or was it more based off I want to do this more as an educational based podcast?
To be honest, I had no clue when I started, and I'm just doing what feels right, and that's the thing that I've learned in this past, well, 2 3 years. I think before I was still learning from the gurus and learning what they say that you need to do and how you should create a successful podcast, or I wasn't into podcasting right then, but to create a successful program, or successful this, successful that, 6-figure business here, 6-figure business there. It's we all know people like that, and in the beginning I followed them, and I thought that they were the ones that would bring me to where I wanted to be, and that I needed to listen because they'd already proven it, and I follow in their footstep and have the same type of success. And it was just not happening. And then I started doubting myself, feeling very disappointment, thinking, and that's also what I got back from them, basically saying, my method works, and if it doesn't work for you, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And I believed them, and that messed with my self-esteem and my self-confidence. And it's not only later that I discovered that their method works for them and they're saying that correctly, but it doesn't mean that it needs to work for me, even though I am implementing it to the letter. So it's about finding what works for you, and that's why I didn't put myself into a position where I needed to follow a certain path. I create what I want to create when I feel called to create it in the form that I am called to at that moment. And I walk in nature every day. That's why my hair is still wet. I just came back and it's raining today. But then I walk there, and then the peace and the quiet, and then just ideas come to me. And that's how the idea for the interviews came. And I thought, we have so much to share and so much to learn from each other. So why not also interview people that have gone through the process that I teach my audience, for instance, or that are in the middle to it, or have something other to contribute to it, other stuff that my target audience could be struggling with, for instance. And then I do that, and sometimes it's because I am meeting amazing people. And then I think, oh, I would love to interview you on my show because people need to hear what you're sharing. And then it suddenly exists. And other times, I had that last week. I was walking in the woods, and then I had this epiphany about my own growth. And I thought, oh, that would be an amazing story to share with my audience. So I decided to record it right there, right then, before I forgot it again, and just, do it. And that's also why I only produce when I feel inspired, because I am about authenticity. That is my thing, and that's what I'm teaching people, to be very authentic. So I would be a bad teacher or a bad guide if I wasn't being authentic, and that doesn't mean pressuring myself to push out content because I need to be consistent and it needs to be every week at the same time. No, for me that's when I feel called, in whatever form I feel called to present it, and that's what I do.
I love it. I love that it's still being part of who you authentically are at the core. You don't want to put the pressure on yourself, because if pressure will cause you to fade out and
Yes.
stop your podcast. So if you do it once a month, and your audience will come back that once a month, and you get that inspired, because we, as creative people, we get inspired constantly, but coming up with ideas for a podcast week after week or day after day can be an exhausting mental strain, because it's like, okay, do I do an interview or do I do a regular podcast episode where I'm educating people? And then it's like, okay, now if I'm educating people, I have to think of what's the topic, how am I going to talk about it, what am I going to touch on? And after a while, sometimes the it dries up, because we've been using it so much, like not just for the podcast, but we have to use it for our other businesses and content there. So it just dries up so quickly. And with interviews, it's like, okay, I have to find those ideal guess that will fit my listener. And unfortunately, sometimes the pool is such a small pool, because our audience, our ideal client, is a very specific in our niche. So finding those people that work, and then it's like, okay, can I take you, can I warp it somehow into working into my niche?
Yeah.
And so that's another struggle, and it's depleting. It's
Especially when
depleting.
you're doing a weekly show, because I ran into that when I have or yeah, still have, but I'm not active in it anymore because of this reason. I have a TV show on YouTube. It's called HSP TV, and I was doing weekly workshops. And then every week you need to come up with a theme, and then you need to come up with the entire workshop, and then you need to present it. But afterwards you need to edit it, and then you need to upload it, and you need to be consistent, and that takes up a lot of time, especially when you're doing it by yourself.
Yeah.
And the constant creation. I've made 74 episodes, I think, for HSP TV, and I'm very proud of that. But at the moment, I've run out of inspiration because it's also based on questions I get from my audience. And when the questions dry up and your own inspiration dries up for whatever reason, then it's on pause, and I'll pick it up again when I feel inspired.
There you go. What's great about these episodes and your TV show, is something I preach. I look at YouTube video or video podcasts or anything that's put on YouTube, and any podcast as the next generation. We are building our media empires for the digital age, because we're creating the content for people to listen to in their cars when they're driving along the super highway. And like, you have a YouTube show, you called it a show, where people, oh yeah, I have a YouTube channel, I put videos on YouTube. No, it is a TV show, if you will, that has education. It could be like an Oprah Winfrey show, where you're interviewing people and you're giving out these lessons, or it can be more, like Bill Nye the Science Guy, teaching science to the masses. It's a full on. You have to look at it as a TV show, because you bring that production value, you'll get that audience and all that. And also trying to do all that while running a business by yourself and having a small or nearly no team is quite impressive. And so I understand why you've taken a step back, but it's also there. And you can always refer your clients. Oh, you know what? I did an episode on my show about this, or I did a podcast here. Listen to this. That's going to solve your problem if you don't want to work with me directly. But here, I want to help you out. And that's
Exactly.
just, it just brings more value to you because then they start consuming your content. And then later down the road, they're like, I want to hire you because you've helped me already.
Yeah, and they're also part of my newsletter automation, you know. So sometimes I've also written a ton of blogs. That was the thing I started with. So sometimes they're getting a blog, and other times they're getting a TV episode, other times they're getting a podcast episode, or I create something new. So that means whatever I give them is also very diverse. So all your content is valuable, and it starts working for you, because indeed, sometimes people don't know you or
Mhm.
don't have money to invest in you, or it could be they don't want to invest because they don't know you, you know, or
They're
variation
worried.
thereof. Yeah, and then you can send them something else that's already out there that will help them in a way already, like indeed a TV show or podcast episode, or a free ebook that you've written, or you know, something, and that's amazing.
Yeah, no, I think the just having this sitting, like just having a podcast or a YouTube sitting there, it gives you a chance to people who are not sure, because there's a lot of people out there, like you said, the gurus out there, like my way or the highway. To get to their acts, to get their info, to know if it works for you, you have to pay. And sometimes you're shelling out two, three, $4,000 at a time for these programs, and then you find out this doesn't work for me.
Hmm.
However, if they had a podcast or they had a YouTube channel, you could sit down, you can go, all right, I like their style of teaching. I understand what they're doing. I can implement some of this. All right, you do it, you get a little money, and you're like, okay, I'm ready to invest because their process worked for me. Now I'm going to invest in getting the hands-on next level.
Yes.
So I really feel like having these podcasts. That's why I have so many podcasts. I just want people to know I know how to podcast. That's why I
Yes.
have a plethora of podcasts. But
Yeah.
I
That's
just
why I
love,
don't teach people my method. I help them discover their method,
yeah,
the way of doing things for them. And if they are very introverted, for instance, then starting your own YouTube channel might not be the best thing for you, or doing Facebook lives every week, you know, that might be actually be killing you. But
yeah.
doing a podcast, because yeah, now we're on camera, but it doesn't have to be. It can also
No.
be just audio. So if you're more introverted, then you can just use the audio part for your podcast, and that might make all the difference.
Oh yeah,
Or
no, it's amazing. Yes, this is video recorded, but at the same time, I pull the audio and that goes up, and this goes onto YouTube, so I'm right there. But if you don't want to be on YouTube, like you said, use the audio and you can start building it that way. Just like some people who are scared to talk, they start a blog, and they're amazing writers. They have their blogs and they grow their blogs, and that's their way of being extroverted in the introverted worry.
yes, exactly. So it's not about what I find that works. It's about what works for you.
Yeah, it's when you when since I do coaching as well, just like you for my podcasting, I know what works for me to make my podcast successful. But working with individuals, my method may not be the right way. But you figure out how you can manipulate your method so that it works with the other individual, so that they get the best from it. You're like, I did this, you could maybe do this. That'd probably be a bit better way of going about it. And
Yes,
I think it's great. And that's what happens when you get to talk with amazing entrepreneurs and amazing coaches and amazing podcasters, because you hear their way of doing business or doing their job. And you're like, oh, so it just settles in the back of your mind. And then when you get a new client, you're like, wait a second, I've already talked to someone about this. And that's how they solve the problem.
exactly. Yeah, yes.
Um, Go ahead. Sorry.
That's why working in groups can also be so valuable. Why I recently started a combination of a virtual cafe with a mastermind combination, because it's so important to connect with people that get it, that are wanting the same goals as you, moving towards there, and then to be able to share your stories with each other, and your questions with each other, so that you can learn and grow together, and all become better at what you do.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Um, so far you've been doing about 2 years now, nearly podcasting.
Yes.
What has been one of your favorite moments or an event that happened and you're like, this is why I like enjoy podcasting?
There was this one episode, Phil, and for the life of me at this moment, I don't know what the title was, but I had recorded it and then I was editing it and I was listening to myself and I thought, God, this is inspiring. And I thought I even inspire myself. How amazing is that? That
That's
something,
impressive.
when it starts flowing out of you, you go on a sort of rant sometimes without even actually being very conscious of it. And I was listening it back and I thought, damn, this is good. I impressed myself. That was such a beautiful moment.
Oh, that is a great moment when you have a solo episode or even an interview that just goes off just perfect. Like everything is just value, value, value. And you're just like, "Oh my god, I don't know what to do with this. This is way too much power in my hands." Having an episode like that. I know I get that feeling with the multiple different podcasts sometimes that you just have that episode where you just click with some person and it
Yes.
just goes, this is the smoothest conversation I've ever had in my life. What's going on? Did I waste all my karma points on this? Because
Yes.
that's a shame. um
Yeah, I've
but
had
yeah,
that happen too, indeed, with um, people that come on that you have such a click with that without thinking it flows to great heights, and then you think, "Damn, we're inspiring."
yeah, and then you're like, wait, no, it happens with me because I have the certain questions I need to ask, and like could be the end of the episode. I'm like, oh, I haven't asked a single question here. Let's hit them out right now so that I can at least say that I have them in the episode. But yeah, those are the episodes that I find have you have to do a bit digging to get
Mm.
the golden nuggets, but they're peppered throughout, so you're finding gold throughout the whole episode when you listen
But
back. So
you're making a good point, and that's why I only have one question that I lead in with. So I always start my episodes with, "What does being 100% yourself mean to you?"
oh,
Because that's the name of my podcast. And that's always my first question. And then I just let a natural conversation arise. And my next questions will be based on whatever answer they're giving. So I never really know where it goes, but it tends to end up in the most beautiful places.
those that I love how you incorporated your title into the one question you ask your guest, and that's a genius way of doing it because
Thank you.
it is. You're like, this is an episode about being 100 ourselves, so I need to know what it means to you so that we can have this enjoyable journey. Oh my god, give me one second. There we go. Um, Forgot to turn off the alarm on the phone. Always an amateur mistake here. But we are coming up to the end. I do want to get your choice because as a podcaster, we do listen to other podcasts. Is there
Mm.
a podcast apart from mine and yours? Because we don't want to fluff our egos too much.
Mm.
Is there a podcast that you listen to nearly on a regular basis that you would like to share with our audience?
Well, I listen a lot to Earl Nightingale. I think he has the most wonderful, deep, smooth voice. That just, I love
It-
that. And
yeah.
if you then listen to what he is saying, he was one of the first people in personal development, basically. So
Mhm.
I think he's long gone by now. So well, his teachings are old, but they're so on point. And it's whenever I feel a bit down or a bit off key, or then I listen to Earl, and that just it brings me right back. It's yeah.
Oh yeah, Earl is a great one as well as hold on. Oh, there's another one. Neil Goddard, I think is his name.
Neil Goddard. Yeah.
Yeah, Neil Goddard is another one. Again, from the same time as the other one. All right. Barbara, I'm going to jump off screen. I'm going to give you the last 5 minutes. Please let my audience know where they can listen to your podcast, where they can connect with you if they want to be 100% themselves and learn from you. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Phil. I hope that whoever was listening and will listen to this in the future thought it was a really cool podcast. My podcast can be found on almost all major platforms. I'm producing it through anchor.fm/HSP Coach Barbara. So that's where you can find the original. But if you search for HSP Coach Barbara on all major platforms, that includes social media, actually, but also Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, podcast and SoundCloud and stuff. It's all hspcoachbarbara.com. That's also my website. So you can also connect with me there. It's also the link to my YouTube channel. So I kept it simple, just everywhere it's the same. And I love connecting with people. I love talking with people. So I offer everyone that's listening or watching the possibility just have a coffee chat with me, a virtual coffee chat. And that's a no strings, no nothing attached call where we can just have this heart to heart talk and be 100% ourselves in meeting and connecting with each other, because that's just, yeah, who I am and what I love doing. So reach out, talk with me, whatever platform you can find me. I always love talking with people. And Phil, thank you so much for this wonderful talk and this amazing opportunity.
Barbara, it was a pleasure having you on. Again, chatting with you. It's second time is even better than the first time. Learning about your journey as a podcaster, when I learned your journey as an entrepreneur. So both times have been great to learn. I want my audience to know the links will be in the show notes down below. You can actually listen to the episode. I believe it should be out by the time this one goes out. If not, the link will be in the show notes where you can listen to the digital entrepreneur episode with Barbara and learn about her coaching side and learning her journey on that side. Please do listen to her episodes, connect with her. I highly suggest it. It's worth your time if you're looking to become a better version of yourself. Barbara can help you. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for listening. Barbara, again, thank you so much for being a guest again on my podcast. It's always a pleasure. And to my audience, remember to invest in yourself to make sure that you can grow. Hey, everybody, I want to thank you so much for watching the show and listening to the podcast. As a thank you, remember, you can always head over to my website, feelbetterinc.com, and get free 15 minutes with me to talk about how you can grow your podcast, how to monetize your podcast, or even how to start your podcast. I have helped lots of people, and I want to help you do the same for your business or just for your personal brand. So again, that is feelbetterinc.com. Head over there, book your free 15 minutes, and it'll be a pleasure to help you out. Have a good night, and remember to invest in yourself.